Between the rise and fall and what on earth is going on series that I run on this channel, I talk a lot about some of the worst run clubs in football, and how their collapses, typically both on and off the pitch, came about. Whilst I have also made videos about clubs who have got things right on occasion, they are few and far between. So I thought, why not make a single video celebrating some of the best run football clubs on the planet. I'm happy to report that I was able to draw up a shortlist of over 30 teams, so even in these bitterly difficult times for football, with the limited or non-existent crowds across much of the world, there are still plenty of teams who look well positioned to thrive over the years to come. There are a number of very high-profile, well-run clubs at the moment, whether it be Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, Tottenham Hotspur or Liverpool, but I didn't want to include teams whose situations you all already knew, so I left those cases out in favour of some more intriguing and perhaps less understood examples. What constitutes a well-run club is obviously up for debate, and some might argue that trophies are the only possible criteria. But the key factors that I'm interested in today are financial sustainability, low or manageable levels of debt, recruitment, youth development, overall return on investment, and then also obviously results in relation to expenditure. It isn't an exact science, but all these clubs score highly in just about all of these areas. Here are 7 of the best run clubs in world football. Sassuolo. There are a lot of poorly run clubs in Italian football, laden with huge debts, playing in increasingly decrepit stadiums with expensive yet underperforming squads. And then there's little old Sassuolo. A 4th-tier side as recently as 2006, Sassuolo won promotion to Serie A for the very first time in 2013, winning over the neutrals with their youthful squad and entertaining brand of football under former Italian international Eusebio Di Francesco. Owned by Mappe, manufacturers of chemicals and building materials, Sassuolo aren't short of a bob or two, but they didn't simply spend their way to success like a number of other clubs. Sassuolo made significant investments following promotion in the summer of 2013, most notably with the arrival of Simone Zaza from Juventus for £9 million. However, in the 7 years since, Sassuolo have managed to establish themselves in Serie A despite a negative net spend. That is to say, they have brought more money in than they have spent on players and transfers. The club's academy may be the weakest in this 7, but it has still raised significant funds, and 26-year-old all-time club record goalscorer Domenico Berardi came through their own youth ranks. He stars alongside exquisite acquisitions like Manuel Locatelli, who cost £11 million, and Jeremy Boga, who cost £3.5 million, both of whom are now worth small fortunes. Sassuolo is a town of only 41,000 people, equidistant between Parma and Bologna, yet 10 games into this season, their football club is above both of the capital clubs, Roma and Lazio, and just 1 point behind Juventus. It's a remarkable rise, and what's more impressive, it's one that shows few signs of stopping. FC Midland. Formed through a merger only 21 years ago, FC Midland won promotion to the Danish Superliga in their first season, winning the most points of any team in the entire history of the Danish First Division. In 2014, Matthew Benham became the club's majority shareholder, and he introduced a vast array of innovative measures in terms of Midland's academy and their recruitment. Interestingly, the other club that Benham owns, Brentford, were one of a few English clubs that almost made this 7. The good work started before 2014, when Midland became the first Danish club to establish their own football academy in 2004, but Benham has certainly refined and further professionalised the operation. Midland now have a network of over 100 youth teams throughout Denmark and a partner academy in Nigeria, and they have produced talent like Simon Kjær, Winston Reid, Pioni Sisto, Rasmus Nielsen and Andreas Poulsen. It's always difficult for teams from outside Europe's most lucrative leagues to compete in European competitions these days, but Midland have competed in UEFA competitions every season since Benham's takeover, and they qualified for the Champions League group stages for the first time this season, recording qualifying wins over the likes of Young Boys, Ludogorets and Slavia Prague. Not bad for a team with a €12.6 million wage budget. Real Sociedad. The inspiration for this video, since I got this idea after describing Real Sociedad as the archetypal well-run club in my recent La Liga video, what La Real have done over the last couple of years is majorly impressive. Had I made this video at almost any other time in the past decade, Athletic Bilbao would have walked into this 7, and make no mistake, they are still a very well-run club. Over the last few years though, Sociedad's long-term planning has really come to fruition, and now the club is reaping the rewards. Athletic and La Real both have very similar youth and recruitment policies, centred exclusively in Bilbao's case and almost exclusively in Sociedad's around players from the Basque region. That is an area roughly 1/3 of the size of Wales, with two huge clubs in one of the best leagues in the world relying on it for their sustained success. Where Bilbao succeeded for so long, Sociedad now appear to have leapfrogged them. The club has a magnificent youth system, with teams at all age groups singing from the same hymn sheet and playing the same style of football. 16 of Sociedad's current first-team squad are products of their own youth ranks, the most of any team in La Liga right now, and their first-team boss has been managing the team's youth or B teams since 2011. La Real generate a fortune in player sales, and they invest that money wisely. In addition to promoting from within, when they do dip into the market, whether it be Willian Jose for €6 million, Porto for €10 million, or David Silva on a free, they tend to get the big decisions bang on in recent years. The team spirit at Sociedad is enormous, and despite their modest wage budget compared to their rivals, all Sociedad players agreed to a 20% coronavirus-related pay cut last season. Their wage budget is minuscule in comparison to the teams they are currently competing with. Yet, they are currently second in the La Liga table. Rennes. Those who don't take a keen interest in the history of French football could be forgiven for thinking that Rennes were overachieving minnows at this moment in time, when in truth, Rennes are a big club in a big city that have been sleeping giants for far too long. They now appear to have woken up, and their resurgence is thanks in no small part to a remarkable academy and brilliant boardroom operations. The Rennes Academy is among the best in the European, never mind just the French game. From Johan Gurkov to Sylvain Wiltord, the Rennes Academy has long been a fine footballing institution, but it has never been more impressive conveyor belt of talent than it is right now. Ousmane Dembele is perhaps the most notable of the recent crop, or at least he was, up until the emergence of Eduardo Camavinga. A man of the match winner against Paris Saint-Germain at the age of 16, Camavinga is an immense prospect, now a full French international at the age of only 17. Rennes have brought in an absolute fortune in player sales in recent years, whether it be Edouard Mendy to Chelsea, Rafinha to Leeds United, or Ismaila Sarr to Watford. When the club reinvests that cash, they invariably do so in their own youth ranks to further strengthen their player development or in other young players with high sell-on values. Last season, Rennes finished third in Liga, and whilst they've endured a more mixed start to the current campaign, the structure of the club means their long-term prospects remain excellent. Red Bull Salzburg. I was reluctant to include any of the Red Bull franchises, given that they have obviously been very well funded, in a way that is unpalatable to some people. Red Bull Salzburg may be the most extreme example of that, given Austrian football isn't the most lucrative of leagues, and that since Dietrich Mateschitz' business rolled into town, Salzburg have effectively removed any element of competition from the division, creating near total hegemony over the Austrian game. With all that having been said, and all the obvious caveats taken into account, it would still be ridiculous to suggest that Red Bull Salzburg are not a sensationally well-run club. Since 2013, Red Bull Salzburg have generated more than €300 million through player sales, through the likes of Erling Haaland, Takumi Minamino and Munis de Boer. That is an extraordinary amount of money for an Austrian club, but most impressive of all is the fact that every time someone departs, Salzburg seem to have someone of equal or even greater potential waiting in the wings. Red Bull operate excellent academy systems at all their clubs, but Salzburg are the pick of the bunch, and their players get the extra benefit when it comes to their development thanks to the feeder club FC Lieferang in the Austrian football's second league. Unfortunately, Salzburg are in of themselves a feeder club in many respects, with a number of their best players having departed for RB Leipzig in recent years. It is perhaps worth noting that had those players been sold to the open market rather than to Leipzig, Salzburg may have raised even more than the €300 million via player sales that they have done over the last 7 years. A controversial club, no doubt, but also one of the best run in all of world football. FC Basel. A historic institution of Swiss football, since being founded in 1893, FC Basel have had an inconsistent 127 years. Dominant during the 1970s, Basel suffered a swift demise, getting relegated during the 1980s and spending most of the 1990s as a mid-table team. You don't go from mediocrity to domestic dominance and European regulars by accident, and in Basel's case, there were a number of key moments throughout that time. Christian Gross managed the team with distinction from 1999 to 2009, putting a huge emphasis on youth development, and the arrival of billionaire Gisela Ueri's investment in 2001 meant the Swiss outfit now had the means to implement their ideas. The same year, Basel moved into the state-of-the-art St. Jacob Park, capable of holding almost 40,000 spectators. Everything was starting to come together. The long-term business model at Basel is very simple: to sell players for an enormous profit in order to sustain the club, and they have mastered that art. Players to have come through the club's youth ranks or have learnt their trade before being sold on by the club include Mohamed Salah, Xherdan Shaqiri, Granit Xhaka, Mohamed El Enoussi, Breel Embolo, Mohamed El Neni, Jan Sommer, and so many more. Basel have missed out on the title to another fabulously run club in recent years, namely Young Boys, but they still take second for me. Honourable mentions. I won't attempt to explain every honourable mention since there are a lot of them, and I suspect this video will be rather lengthy already. But some of the teams who made my shortlist but just missed out, partly due to my rule about not including the big obvious inclusions, include the likes of Athletic Club, Borussia Dortmund, Brighton and Hove Albion, Burnley, Liverpool, Tottenham Hotspur, Bayern Munich, Brentford, Leganes, Ajax and Celta Vigo. Before I come to top spot, it's worth pointing out that I have had to be very terse with the way in which all of these clubs are run, and if the demand is there, any of them could be made into individual feature-length videos in which I go into detail with regards to their full footballing operations. So let me know in the comments if there's a decent appetite for something like that. Anyhow, here is your top spot. Eibar. As you can probably guess from the other teams in this 7, the honourable mentions, and those who didn't even get a mention, this was an extraordinarily competitive 7, and one that was really tricky to determine. With that being said, I was never in too much doubt about who was going to come in at top spot, since what Eibar have achieved over the last decade is quite frankly mind-boggling. Eibar is a city of only 27,000 inhabitants, making it smaller than the market town of Beverley, where I was born, or roughly 0.3% of the size of London, to give you all a comparison that you can probably better understand. Founded 80 years ago, the fact that Eibar were regulars in the Segunda division from the late 1980s through to the mid-2000s was considered something of an overachievement in of itself, but rarely did they trouble the promotion places, and in 2006 they were relegated down into the 3rd tier. As recently as 2013, Eibar was still playing 3rd tier football, but back-to-back promotions resulted in an unthinkable promotion into La Liga in 2014. Eibar won the Segunda Division title with the smallest stadium in the entire division, becoming by far the smallest club in Spain's top flight. Eibar had a slice of luck in their debut La Liga campaign, avoiding the drop thanks only to Elche's enforced relegation. But since then, they have gradually established themselves alongside clubs 3, 4 and even 10 times their size. Perhaps most impressively of all, Eibar are based in the Basque Country, where Sociedad and Bilbao's frenzy recruitment policies has historically left the region's other clubs feeding off scraps. Eibar are now attracting genuine talent to the tiny city, despite operating on a shoestring budget, and the fact that they are currently ahead of the likes of Valencia and their giant neighbours in Bilbao should serve as an inspiration to minnows right across the globe. So Eibar take the HITC 7 title as the best run football club on earth for 2020 at least. That's it for today's video, but thank you all as ever for watching. Give us a like if you enjoyed the video, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for HITC Sevens. Oh, and you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram, or Instagram I should say, should you wish to do so, where the username is just at HITC Sevens on both platforms.